Are the LLM able to detect and fix the N+1 query problem? Some time ago I made a couple of videos explaining what the N+1 query problem is and how to solve it using JPA and Hibernate. Today I will test the LLM to verify whether they are able to detect the N+1 query problem. I will use ChatGPT, Claude Sonnet and DeepSeek. I show you the files I'm gonna upload into the prompt, starting from the JPA entity, the company. The company has a one-to-many association with a list of employees. The nested collections are fetched in a lazy way by default. The employee has the reverse association with the company, a many-to-one association. We have a company service, a Spring service. I will submit to the LLM only this method. This method calls the company repository, a JPA repository, to fetch a paginated list of companies. In the second line, the company service calls a converter to transform the list of companies in a list of company DTOs. Let's get into the converter. For each company, it gets a stream of employees to convert the employees entity in employee DTOs. This line causes the N+1 query problem. Reach out to the previous video I made if you need a detailed explanation about the why and the how of the N+1 query problem. The snippet I'm gonna upload has some smells. Specifically, the converter has a casting error, and the JPA repository is annotated as transactional, but is unnecessary because the JPA repositories are transactional by default. I want to leave the smells because I'd like to verify whether the LLMs are able to catch them. Let's start from ChatGPT. It has caught the casting error. It has caught the irrelevant transactional annotation on the repository. Avoiding calling a repository directly in the service methods, that's not clear to me, but let's go ahead. A potential null pointer exception. It proposes wrapping the collections in nullable optional. Okay, it makes sense. Now I ask it to elaborate a little bit the third point. Okay, it's a kind of suggestion from a design point of view. Now I ask explicitly to evaluate performance issues. Okay, he got it. He detected the problem is the for loop for converting the entities in DTO. Proposed solutions, JPA query with join fetch. Yeah, that's my favorite. The second one, projection. I didn't know it, but basically we are preventing the conversion from entity to DTO, and we ask Hibernate to return the DTO instead of the entities. Anyway, it's based on join fetch, so the first solution covers the second one also. Okay, it's time for ranking. I want to evaluate the three LLMs according to different criteria. For example, code, all smells, quality of the explanation, number of proposed solutions, relevance of the solutions, quality of the refactoring tips, main features, and speed. Okay, regarding ChatGPT, code, all smells, yes. Green light. Quality of explanation, high. Okay. Number of proposed solution, 2. Relevance of the solutions, medium. No entity graph, no other methods, only 2 solutions, but the second one is covered by the first one. Quality of refactoring tips, medium. It's curious that earlier it proposed to use specifications or criteria builder, and later it doesn't mention them, and it proposed solutions based on JQL queries. Main features, I would say accuracy. Speed, low. Let's try with Claude Sonnet now. Casting error code, a suggestion to extract out from the service the conversion logic. Okay, that sounds good, but unnecessary. Irrelevant transaction code. Now I ask explicitly to evaluate any performance issues. Claude has got it. Solutions, JQL with join fetch, yeah, my favorite. Creating company DTO without employees, we get a list of companies without employees, and we can have a dedicated API to get the details of a company with all employees. Debatable. It's suggesting a change into the interaction. Sometimes that's okay, but not whether I need to display in the same grid data coming from companies and data from employees in the same grid. I like this solution. It's what I suggest, but it's not a technical solution, but rather a design solution. Third option, configure a batch size. Honestly, I don't remember how the batch size can solve the N+1 query problem. It's not in the set of solutions I'd have in mind. I ask for a clarification. It replaced the paginated fetch with fetch all. Anyway, it looks like instead of fetching the employees company by company, it fetches in batch of 25 records, so a total number of 4 batches, 4 queries. So three solutions, one more than ChatGPT, but the third one doesn't sound so good, or anyway, doesn't explain it enough. It's not clear in which context it can fit. Let's open the ranking table. Code all smells. Yeah, green light. Quality of explanation, high. Number of proposed solution, 3, one more ChatGPT. Relevance of the solutions, high. No entity graph, honestly, so quite medium, but I've appreciated the recommendation on the design of the DTOs and splitting the grid into a grid with minimum set of company fields and a detailed page with employees data as well. Quality of refactoring tips, medium. Apart from the known smells, I got a tip to extract a class from the converter. Main feature, creativity. Speed, medium. And finally, DeepSeek. Casting error code, nothing about transactional repository. Generic suggestions on logging, validation, extracting constants. N+1 query problem detected. Yeah, he got it. Solutions, JQL with join fetch, the same, my favorite. The entity graph, so yeah, it's the first LLM which suggests entity graph. And finally, batch size as Claude Sonnet. Poor explanation on entity graph and batch size, I believe. Talking about performances, it proposes an index on the database, a key set pagination instead of offset-based pagination, reactive programming for streaming the result set instead of keeping all in memory. It has just code the smell around the unnecessary transactional annotations on the repository. It's time for ranking DeepSeek also. Code all smells, yeah. Green light. Quality of explanation, medium. I expected something more about entity graph and batch size. Proposed solution 3. Relevance of the solution, high. Tips, high. Many refactoring suggestions with respect to ChatGPT and Claude Sonnet, yeah. Main feature, analytical and generous of detail, of tips, of suggestions. Speed, high. Now let's make the experiment a little bit more complex. I'm gonna submit in the prompt another JPA entity, a variant of the previous one, where the nested association with the list of employees is fetched with FetchMode.Subselect. It doesn't mention explicitly N+1 query problem. Hibernate will execute a single additional query using wherein clause. I don't think it works so. So now I run the test I developed in a public GitHub repository I have. We enable the Hibernate logs to copy and paste the subselected results. Well, we can see that we fetched 670 collections. This call out that even with FetchMode.Subselect we have an N+1 query problem. This is the subselect, and we can see that in the subselect the in is not on the first page of companies but on the entire list of company. So are you sure the subselect is so as you've written? You are absolutely right to question this. Let's break it down clearly. When use Hibernate does not use the simple in query, instead it generates a subquery like this. No. It's still not correct. It's not correct yet. No, it's not correct yet. No. Hibernate doesn't use the in operator like that with a list of identifiers. You still say that the subselect is so, but actually it looks like this other one. I guess it is not understanding actually the point. I write again. Have you noticed that in an employee entity there is an association with company? What do you think it happens? By default, many-to-one relationships are lazy. This could reintroduce an N+1 problem if you let the iterate over employees and access the encompassing one. Yes, I'm sure that by default many-to-one is eager, so it is changing completely its position. ChatGPT was unreliable. I got an hallucination. What a pity. Okay, so I add a new record, a new row in the ranking table with the criterion N+1 query problem with subselect, and below the ChatGPT column I put a red circle, a red light. Let's try with Claude Sonnet now with the subselect. The sequel will look something like the first query, the second query. I appreciate that it reports the queries. Oh, I believe there is an error on the second query. It's not like that. The subselect is not paginated. And so now I point it out and I write another message in the prompt. You wrote that the second query is this, but actually it looks like this one in the reality. You are absolutely right and appreciate the correction. The actual query generated by Hibernate when using subselect is indeed simpler. The important distinction is that the subselect doesn't include the pagination. This behavior can actually be problematic if you have a large number of companies in your database, and it will load employees for all companies, not just the paginated set. Okay, now Claude got it, but I had to write a second prompt. I put a red circle to Claude Sonnet as well, even though Claude at the end coded the N+1 query problem with the subselect, but that's because I knew the solution and I forced Claude to rethink about its initial answer. He didn't get it at the first attempt, so red circle is deserved. Now it's time for DeepSeek to address the challenge with the FetchMode.Subselect. When using pagination for the root entities, the subquery will still fetch all employees for all companies in the current page. That's not true. That's not true. And now I point out that error. Can you please print the 2 SQL queries I'd get if I use the FetchMode.Subselect? And exactly what I was afraid of, DeepSeek thinks that in the subselect is paginated. And now you wrote that the second query is this, but actually it looks like this one in the reality without the pagination in the subquery. You are absolutely correct. The actual SQL query generated by Hibernate will not include the limit and offset clauses in the subquery. Okay, now that it retreated and corrected the query, I wrote the usual message. Yes, you are absolutely right. I missed a critical detail in your employee entity. If a company entity is already loaded, Hibernate will use it. If a company entity is not loaded, Hibernate will not fetch it automatically unless explicitly requested. Another mistake. Why do you say if a company entity is not loaded, Hibernate will not fetch it automatically unless explicitly requested? Isn't the many-to-one association eager by default? Why do you say Hibernate will not fetch it automatically unless explicitly requested? You are absolutely correct to question this. By default, many-to-one associations in Hibernate are eagerly fetched. Okay, it corrects its mistake. So opening a ranking table, even DeepSeek gets a red circle. Final consideration, I submitted 2 scenarios of N+1 query problem. The first one, the simplest one, all the LLMs detected it and proposed solutions. No one of them proposed the complete set of solutions, but that's okay. At the second turn, the scenario was more complicated. The N+1 query problem got harder to be found. All 3 LLMs ran into hallucinations and I had to point out the errors to get the correct answers. In my opinion, that proves that as of now, the LLMs are not so mature to solve all kinds of N+1 query problems. I will use this snippet as benchmark for the next versions of these models. Today I've just played with ChatGPT O4, Claude Sonnet 3.7 and DeepSeek R1. Tell me what you think about this experiment and which are your opinions about it. And that's it. See you at the next video.